So thanks for joining me here today. Today's topic for discussion is the value added in hiring a real estate attorney in a transaction. And I am honored to have with me here today a trusted advisor and my go-to real estate attorney for my clients, Heather Neveu. Thank you, Heather, for being here.
Thank you, Karen, for inviting me.
The sale and purchase contract has so many facets, and we as consumers and even as real estate attorneys or real estate agents and brokers can be overwhelmed with the contract. So it is obviously effective to have someone involved that is experienced, and Heather is currently the partner of Chilton, Yambert and Porter.
Yes.
It's a mouthful, sorry. And she's been practicing for about 15 years and has a license in both California and Illinois.
Yes.
And from what our discussion is that in California, you focus primarily on supporting contract defects, litigation, and working with various subcontractors like carpenters and installers and things
Correct.
like that.
Yes.
And now in Illinois, you've expanded your real estate practice, not only residential, but commercial and short sales and foreclosures and things like that.
Yes.
And it certainly shows your vast knowledge in the work that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk to you, start with a basic question, essentially. What do you, in your own words, what do you feel some of the key benefits are of hiring an attorney when someone is either purchasing or selling a home?
Sure. So when someone is selling, really one of the key benefits is the seller's attorney is involved in the title work. And so they make sure that the seller conveys clear and marketable title to the buyer.
Right.
It's a big part of the transaction on behalf of the seller. And so a seller's attorney should be knowledgeable about how to read a title report and how to deal with exceptions that appear on that title report. An exception can be anything from a judgment that is recorded against the title of the property.
Mm-hmm.
It can be an easement that the village takes out for the purposes of maybe curb cuts or something like that, and how to read those reports in terms of the history of the property. So what you see a lot in the western suburbs are alleys that used to exist that no longer exist, but still show up on the title report. So you have to know how to read that title report and then compare it to the survey, which the seller's attorney also arranges for and has to make sure is conveyed at the time of closing, to make sure that what appears on the title report in terms of building setback lines or alleys that no longer exist still appear and are marked on the survey.
Okay.
For a buyer's attorney, it's kind of the same role. So you want to make sure your buyer's attorney knows how to read title to see if there's something objectionable that needs to be cleared up before the closing date. You want your buyer's attorney to be knowledgeable, basic knowledge about how loans work. And so sometimes there can be obstacles that show up in getting a loan, especially with condominiums sometimes, that a good buyer's attorney knows how to work with their network of professionals and knows how to counsel both the agent and the client as to how we're going to work through these problems to get towards our goal of either buying the house or selling the house.
Okay, great. Yeah, so title, and people forget about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's really critical, as you said. So what are some of the most common things that people or mistakes that are made, either by a broker, real estate broker, or by the consumer that you come across that you have been able to assist with?
Sometimes, what's a funny one, I just had a transaction that closed a couple weeks ago that the agent did a good job in that they gave preliminary figures to their client, which is done all the time.
Right.
So you'll kind of hear, if we sell it for this price and here are the estimated costs, here should be your bottom line. The realtor made a math error.
Okay.
And so something that should have been a negative was a positive. And so when we saw the real bottom line versus the estimated bottom line, there was a big difference that the client, it raised a question, why are these numbers so different? And so working with the agent and the client to sit down and all of a sudden be like, oh, it's right here. It's just a math error.
Right.
So it's not like you client had this charge that we didn't know about. It was just a math error.
Right.
And here's how we fix it. And here's the right number. And once we fix the estimated number, here's the final number. And they're a lot closer than we thought.
Okay.
What comes up, the biggest mistakes sometimes are setting client expectations. And I think that's where a good real estate attorney and a good broker like you work hand in hand to really help a client set reasonable expectations,
Right.
maintain those expectations, which makes the client in the end a lot happier. So if you know as a buyer what are normal inspection issues, what are unusual inspection issues, so what's a typical thing to ask for, what is out of the realm of reason to ask for, I think that client has a much clearer picture of how this transaction should go,
Right.
what they should be asking for, what the other side's response should be, and then they're happier with the result in the end.
Right.
So the biggest mistake I see from buyers think they can get an inspection report and ask for every single thing to be addressed.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
they can't. So
Right.
what the contract says, and is that, normal wear and tear is not part of the inspection contingency. So
Right.
if it's nicks, it's dents in the wall, or it's just little maintenance issues, or a big one is the driveway will have cracks.
Right.
You don't get to have the driveway resealed.
Right.
So, well, what's reasonable? What's
Yes.
normal? What is outside of normal wear and tear?
Right.
What is a defective condition? And I
Right.
think that's what my experience really plays to, is because I started out for 7 years representing subcontractors
Right.
in construction defect actions. I've spoken to architects and structural engineers and
Right.
licensed electricians and licensed plumbers and everything else, and you have a different concept and idea of this is how these pieces fit together, here's how it should work, here's how you maintain things, and here's how you take care of your home. So if something happens, this is normal and that's not.
Right. Okay. Great. I know that's great advice, and it's hard to cover every single aspect because every transaction is different.
Yes.
And that's where the value comes in having someone like Heather, because we don't always see everything. You see a lot of different scenarios from various transactions, and it's helpful to work together as a team.
Absolutely. I think that's critical.
Yes.
Like, I tell all of my clients who you work with matters.
Right.
So when a client, regardless if you're buying or selling, has an experienced realtor,
Right.
an experienced realtor will have a great network of professionals to work with.
Exactly.
And so when that realtor can handpick the right team that works with that client,
Right.
it really can make a real estate transaction painless.
Right.
Because it doesn't have to be torture.
Right.
With the right group of professionals who set the right expectations,
Right.
it can be a very positive experience for that client. And that's always our objective.
Exactly.
As the professionals, that's what we want.
Exactly.
We want that client to get to that closing table and say, I can't believe how easy that was.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
what we want. And that's a good day, right?
Right, exactly. High five.
High
All right. Well, thank you again so much, Heather.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Karen.
For chatting with me today.
It's always
about
a
this.
pleasure to work with you.
Thank you so
I'm always
much.
so happy to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in today. Whether you're following my podcast on Facebook, SoundCloud, or YouTube, don't miss the next episode. Like or subscribe now to Real Estate Views with Karen Lynch. Tune in and find news and views that you can use. See you next time.